Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. Frozen Heart, Fated Soul. Episode 4. Kiera. I looked down at the man before me. He was in his early 20s from what I could see. His face looked sickly and I could see some abnormalities in it. His skin looked sallow and there were grey veins around his eyes and up his neck. It was also covered in a layer of slime-like sweat. He was bitten by a man-angle 2 weeks ago. We have tried several treatment methods. You can see his wounds, infected. Any suggestions? I have tried all the herbal remedies, including your suggested method yesterday. It hasn't made much difference at all. His blood is completely poisoned. Dr. Callum said. I could tell he truly was a doctor who aimed to help his patients no matter how low the chances were. That was clear from the fact he was asking me. Looking for any input, I stared at the man before me, analyzing him quietly. He suddenly turned and looked at me with his dilated pupils that were a pale yellow, most likely his wolf's eyes. The urge to help him overcame me. I looked into his eyes, which seemed to be trying to speak. It's his mind, I said suddenly, blinking at my own words. Dr. Callum and the two warriors looked at me sharply. Mind? I shook my head. I don't even know what I meant. I stepped closer and one of the warriors placed an arm in front of me. It's dangerous, he said. His bright, sharp blue eyes looked cold. I'll be fine, I said confidently. I stepped closer, until I was right up against the bed. The man growled, his eyes enlarging as he tried to reach for me as if he wanted to attack me. The two men moved forward, but I raised my hand. Hold it, I said, before I placed my hand on the man's forehead, forcing it back against the table. He struggled as I gently stroked it. It was clear he was in pain. My heart was filled with sadness, wondering how much pain he was in. I understood the need to bind him, but it was clear the restriction was distressing him too. Do sedatives not work? I asked, watching the man calm down under my touch. No reply. I looked up at Callum, who was watching me with an unreadable expression on his face. Doctor, how are you doing that? He asked quietly. Doing what? Calming him, he said. I looked back at the man, who now had become still, his breathing more even. My heart skipped a beat and I removed my hand. I didn't do anything special, I said. Callum grunted. I would assume you're a witch, but us wolves can smell witches. I smiled cheekily despite the grim situation. Maybe I'm just a natural, I teased, before looking back at the man. We need to keep him calm. I'm sure if he wasn't so distressed, he would heal better. Callum looked at the warriors before scratching his chin. I'm not sure what to say. This patient's chance of survival and recovery is a less than 5%. I don't think just his mind being at ease will help. Is there anything you can do for him? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Nothing more. We will of course keep trying, but... Then that's fine. From today, can I decide what to do with this patient and take care of him? I asked. My gaze fell to his mark and another wave of sorrow washed over me. I wonder what his mate was going through. Very well, Callum said. I will make you a pass while you are here. This is against protocol, but the Alpha made it clear that you were to be treated with the highest regards. Despite the situation, those words made my heart skip a beat. Did Alejandro really say that? My heart warmed and I knew my cheeks were heating up. That would be great. Could I start with some blood samples? I asked. Of course, I will give you access to the supplies room and lab. Warrior Julio and Brian, if you can both make sure Miss Kiera is kept safe. Dr. Callum said, and the two men nodded. What's his name? I asked, looking at the man on the bed. Valentine. Callum replied. Maybe a visit from his mate may ease him. That isn't really an option. It would only distress her, seeing his condition like this. I didn't question further and nodded before I moved to leave the room to get what I needed. Valentine suddenly grabbed my wrist. Instantly the warriors were about to interfere. My eyes flashed and I glared at them. Please, unless I tell you otherwise, don't butt in. I said to them. Couldn't they see his condition? Why was it that wherever I went, people thought I couldn't handle myself? I slowly freed myself and looked at the man. I'll be back, I said before I walked out, welcoming the fresh clear air. My stomach was hurting thanks to the fact I had no breakfast. I still felt tired and achy, but I was more excited to focus on the patient. I knew I was half avoiding Alejandro, but I didn't care. Not after how he ignored me this morning. 3 hours later, I had several samples and assessments done. I was sitting in the lab looking at the results and comparing them to the ones that were taken this morning, 2 days ago and then a week ago. What caught my attention was the latest ones, which seemed to contain slightly less poison. Was it the fact he was in a calmer state of mind? I tapped my pen on the table as I jotted down some notes. My stomach rumbled loudly and I saw the other doctors who were working on stuff look at me. I blushed in embarrassment until one of the women came over. Miss, you've been here for hours. Why don't you call it a day? She suggested. I think I will. I wanted to prepare some medicine for him before I leave. I said. Just don't burn yourself out. She replied before walking off. I looked down at my notes. I needed to look through the journal copies I had made. Glad that I had brought them along. There might be something in there that could help. Apart from that, I wanted to visit his mate. I placed my notepad aside and labeled all my vials and research before storing them in a container and placing them in the fridges at the back. I then got to making the medicine. I finally left the hospital holding my notes late in the afternoon. I took my phone out, realizing I had a few missed calls from Raven and 2 from a number I didn't know. I frowned as I unlocked it. Ignoring Raven's countless messages, I sent her a quick message telling her I'll be back a little later. The unnamed number had also left a message. Hey Kiera, it's me, Rayhan. Could we talk when you're free? I let guilt wash over me and I took a deep breath. Yeah, maybe we did need to talk. Sure, I'm heading to the pack hall for some food. Meet me there? By the way, I'll be cheeky and ask you to bring some money. I forgot mine when I left this morning. I hit send and then decided to head to the pack hall's diner. I was halfway there when none other than Carmen came in front of me. I saw the flicker of annoyance in her eyes. I didn't need this right now. How are you finding your visit? She asked. I looked into her dark, piercing eyes. Great actually. I was about to walk past her when she stepped in my way. Can I help you with something? I asked, my eyes flashing. Calm down, I'm just curious. I heard you're an impressive fighter from your pack member, Greg, was it? I was wondering if you ever wanted to match me. I'm just curious how good you are. I knew what she wanted to do, beat out of me, if given the chance. I was strong but she was way more experienced. Her bulging muscles and battle scars spoke for themselves. Not to mention, she was at least 10 years my senior and one of the head warriors of this pack. But I was my mother's daughter. That would be fun. You're said to be one of the finest warriors of this pack. It'll be nice to see how I fare against you, I said confidently. She seemed surprised when I agreed. Brushing her hair off her face, she smirked. How about tomorrow? Night. Night. I said, why did she choose night time? Her L.P. curled. My bad, I forgot you can't really see at night. I wondered if that rumor was true or not. No, night is fine, I said quietly. Great. I'm not sure the Alpha will be okay with it. I mean, I don't want him to get into an argument with your dad. Maybe you should ask his permission first. I wasn't blind to hear the mockery in her voice. I clenched my jaw, trying not to get annoyed off. Don't worry, I don't need anyone's opinion. I'll see you at 10 p.m. tomorrow by the training grounds. Is the time suitable? It will be completely dark by then. Her smirk faltered. I knew what she was doing. Stupid. If she wanted to play like that, I was ready. Sure. I didn't bother replying or bidding her farewell and continued on my way. Rayhan was already waiting outside, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. Once again, I noticed the resemblance between Alejandro and him. His long hair was left open today though. He wore a white t-shirt and blue torn jeans. I stopped in front of him and I saw him looking me over in concern. Shall we? He said. Sure. I said, as I fell in step with him and we went inside. We were seated after ordering some pizza and French fries. We didn't have to pay, everyone knew who we were and the place belonged to the king, no payment was required. I'm not your dad or your brother, so all I'm going to ask is, are you okay? He asked. I felt my cheeks burn under his piercing dark grey eyes. Perfectly. I'm sorry that he hurt you. But it was consensual, I said, avoiding his gaze. Goddess, this was mortifying. I was discussing my life with someone I hadn't talked to in ages. You're a woman. So that's up to you. But don't get so deep into it that you get hurt in the end. He said this quietly, picking up a pizza slice. Got it. Too late for that, he used me and didn't seem to care. Or maybe he didn't know what to say. What was I expecting anyway? There was never a chance for more between us. I took 1-2 and bit into it. How's your head? Almost healed. I guess that's why your hair is not tied? I asked, feeling guilty. It's no big deal, he said grinning, running his fingers through his shoulder-length curls. I frowned standing up and placed my pizza down. Let me see. It'll heal, I'm an alpha. he said, picking up another slice. He sure ate fast. I ignored his remark and walked up to him, parting his hair until I saw the wound that was not fully healed. How hard did he slam his head? I sighed deeply. What are you doing? He asked, tugging away. Just looking at your wound. It still has a way to go to heal. No big deal. He said, picking up some fries. I'm sorry. It was my fault. Not at all, but I'm curious to know, what did you see in him? I blushed at the blunt question. Can we not discuss my life? I said, glancing around. No names spoken. He said, smirking. He's handsome, but I don't know, we clash a lot. I shrugged. Now enough about me, what about you? No lady on your arm, or are you waiting for your mate? Let's just say I'm waiting for the right girl. He said, with a smirk. Are you looking forward to finding your mate? I always have been. I said, my smile vanished. The excitement I'd felt my entire life about finding my soulmate seemed to have faded. All thanks to one person. Alejandro. Not so much anymore. Rayhan stated, picking up his can of fizzy. Let's just say it's kind of complicated. I said quietly. He's already affecting you. Don't let him hurt you, Kiera. That's all I'm saying. I didn't reply, the dull ache I felt this morning when he ignored me settling into my chest once more. I just think people don't see that he's human too. I said after a moment. I didn't know why, but I felt the way he was viewed was because people feared him for what he was. Forgetting that beyond that he was just a human, with feelings. He's ruthless and cares for no one, Kiera. Everyone knows that. He said quietly, glancing around. I didn't reply. I didn't agree. Maybe. I said, simply falling silent as I continued eating. Once I was done I felt a lot more energized, not to mention the ache had gotten a lot less. I decided to ask someone about Valentine's mate and pay them a visit. Kiera, I knocked the door to Valentine's apartment and it was opened quite soon by a young woman, who was heavily pregnant. Instantly I realized why Callum had said it wouldn't be ideal. Can I help you? She asked. I could tell instantly she was stressed, tired and distraught. I could also see she had been mated into this pack because she lacked the muscles of the females of this pack. I'm just someone from the hospital, I just know. Selene, no. My eyes widened in surprise, realizing what she was assuming. No. He's fine. I mean, he's still healing but his bloods are looking better than yesterday. I said quickly, placing my hands on her shoulders and gently giving them a squeeze. Oh. But there's not much hope for him, is there? She whispered. I gave her a small smile. There is always hope. I came here for something actually. I said gently. Sorry I didn't get your name. She said. Oh sorry, I'm Kiera and yours? Jean. She said. Jean. Well, I was wondering if I could have some worn clothes, bedding, anything with your scent on it. I think it would help Valentine feel at peace. I know you can't be there but I think your scent would calm him. I asked gently. Not wanting to stress her out. She stopped and looked at me. Do you think it would help? She asked. I saw the hope in her eyes and I swear I am going to make sure he's okay. I think it will, I said with resilience. She smiled and nodded. Then I'll go get you some items. She waddled off and I wondered how far along she was. She looked to be near the end of her third trimester and I wished Valentine could be by her side when she gave birth. She was back soon enough and gave me a tight hug as a thank you. With reinforced determination, I took the large bag of clothing and headed back to the hospital, lugging the heavy bag with me. I ignored the looks I got from some of the doctors and nurses as I had to ask someone to let me in. Dr. Callum didn't have a pass ready for me yet. Once I was in the ward, I entered Valentine's room with 3 items from the bag. I placed them under his head as I stroked his head gently. The room smelled slightly better with the windows now open, although they were just small vents right at the top. Every little helped. Jean sends her regards, she's waiting for you, I said, hoping he could hear me and hopefully smell her scent. He seemed to calm down and the 2 guards exchanged looks. I stayed there for a while, until Valentine had fallen asleep, before I left and headed back to Alejandro's mansion. I wasn't looking forward to this, but I knew I had to face him sooner or later. I stepped inside and his scent hit me strongly. My stomach did a flip and I hesitated in the hallway. I could tell from the scents that Rayhana, Raven, and Jasmine were also there. Please? Rayhana asked. Her voice was a lot softer. I don't have time, Alejandro's cold reply came. It's just one movie. I'll bake. Jasmine's voice came. Oh, why don't we do like a bake-off and Uncle can guess who cooked what? Rayhana's excited voice came. Bake-off for the king. Raven's voice came. She sounded quieter and I didn't miss the hostility in her tone. Why not? I think it'll be nice. So he and Rayhan can be the judges. What does the winner get? Jasmine asked in a very flirtatious tone. A kiss from the king. Raven stated. I raised my eyebrows. What was going through that head of hers? I didn't go into the living room or bother to hear Alejandro's reply. Instead, I made my way upstairs. He was the one to blank me this morning. If he wanted to acknowledge me, he could do it on his own. I was not going to let him walk all over me. I took a quick shower, seeing that most of the hickeys had vanished apart from 1 or 2 that left a slight bruising. By nightfall, I was sure they'd be gone to 0. I traced my finger over one. With its fading away, I felt like I would lose the memory of last night too. I had just pulled on a deep purple crop top with black cropped high-waisted pants, and was towel drying my hair when there was a knock at my door. I walked over and opened it to see Raven standing there. She didn't say a word and hugged me tightly. Okay, now I'm worried. I'm sorry. I know I was a bit harsh earlier, I'm sorry for hiding stuff too, I said, sighing as I hugged her back. Glad that things were okay between us. Good, now how about you get yours downstairs and let's bake? Rayhana somehow got him to agree to a movie. I'm surprised. It doesn't seem like it's something he'd do, I said, as we left the bedroom, and my face was makeup free. Yeah, well, he said he will be the one to choose the movie. Oh. See, I knew there'd be a catch. I'm a little tired. You are not giving me that. Who told you to get busy last night? Sue, tell me, how was he? Raven asked, wiggling her brows. I blushed deeply. Incredible, I said, blushing. She smirked, pushing me towards the kitchen. We entered and I looked around the gorgeous kitchen, which was all black gloss doors and black granite worktops. A huge double-door black fridge stood to one side and there was a large island in the middle. The walls were tiled and the floor was white tiles. Come on, we are baking. Rayhana said from where she stood, her hair up in a bun and an apron on. Uncle and Rayhan will be here for the movie in under an hour's time. Yeah, I'm making brownies, so no one else make brownies. Jasmine said with a toss of her gorgeous hair. I didn't bother replying and instead began doing a loose plait in my hair just to keep it out of my way. I didn't have a band to tie it back, so left it, as long as it got me through my baking. Well, I'm making fairy cakes, Raven said confidently. Girl, can you bake? I asked her skeptically. Of course, I can. Well, I have to admit, I love her confidence. I decided on making some blondies. We had to wait 10 minutes before the Omegas got us all the ingredients. I was surprised to see the two women who worked here, they were barely seen around. Even at dinner last night, I hadn't seen who served. I learned that they were twin sisters who both lost their mates to a rogue attack. Carla and Claire. They were in their mid-30s and originated from Alejandro's brother's pack. Jasmine kept making a mess and taking up more than half of the huge kitchen. I worked slowly, too lost in thought as I tossed my mixture together. Only stopping to answer a video call from Mom and Dad. Angel. Dad said the moment he saw me. I saw him look me over. Hey Dad, Mom, I replied, waving as I poured the mixture into a tray. What are you doing? Baking, I said. Hey Auntie Red, Uncle L, looking good, Raven added, popping her head in front of the screen. Dressed like that, Dad said, frowning at my top. What's the big deal? Mom asked him. Rayhan's there. I rolled my eyes. Dad, you're way off the mark. It's not Rayhan that you should be worried about. I saw Rayhana watching me, I gave her a small smile and motioned her over. Dad, Mom, we're not alone, Rayhana's here, and the daughter of the alpha of the Quick Fang pack. Jasmine Bloom, Dad said in understanding, then turned to Mom. Maybe he's agreed. Agreed to what? I was confused. Oh shoot, my cupcakes! Raven exclaimed, rushing to the oven. I turned, looking at the smoke that was coming from the oven. Dad, we got to go. My day's been great and I was at the hospital for most of it. I'm enjoying myself. Love you both and give Liam my love too. I'll speak to you guys later. Take care of yourself. Mom said with a small smile. Dad didn't look too pleased that I rushed the call but told me he loved me and to take care of myself before ending it. I shook my head at Raven's slightly burnt cupcakes. Okay, I'm being nice, those things were as black as charcoal. I knew this would happen. If anyone could burn cupcakes, it was Raven. Gosh, someone opens a window. Jasmine said, wrinkling her nose. Rayhana rushed to open one and I looked at Jasmine. She hadn't thrown any digs at me all day today. Although, after Alejandro's comment about talking to me yesterday, she had thrown daggers at me all throughout dinner. But today she was in an exceptionally good mood. I didn't think too much about it as I placed my blondies into the oven. I knew Alejandro liked my brownies. I wondered if he'd like these too. Kiera, half an hour later, we had arranged the desserts on a tray. Raven had smothered her burnt cupcakes with so much icing you couldn't even see the cake at all. They looked anything but appetizing. The icing dripped down the sides, making me feel a little sick. I was going to feel sorry for anyone who tried them. I didn't tell her that though. Maybe they'd pick up the smell and not taste them. Jasmine's brownies looked good and so did Rayhana's cookies. I'll do the honors. Jasmine was about to reach for the tray when Rayhana stepped forward, her gorgeous black ringlets bouncing. I'll do the honors, she said sweetly. I want to present this to my uncle and brother. I saw her eyes fill with slight sadness and I had a feeling she was probably remembering last night. Okay, Jasmine said, rolling her eyes. She adjusted her dress and smoothed her hair out. We all trailed into the living room and I ran my fingers through my hair that was now almost dry. I felt his eyes on me and I looked up slowly, letting my fingers continue to run through my hair before I looked away. The room was large, with dark walls, black carpet, and the large windows that had black curtains which were wide open. There were black leather sofas, a coffee table, some canvases, and a 60-inch television on the wall. Okay, so you take a bite of everything, choose the winner and then they get the reward. Rayhana explained. Perfect. Jasmine said, taking the seat next to Alejandro who was sat in the middle of the sofa, his legs sprawled out in front of him with a completely cold, I don't attitude. While Rayhan was sat on the other sofa on one side. Okay, no hinting or anything. Rayhana said, excitement clear on her face. I felt guilty for the trouble I caused last night. She was talking to me normal, however at times I caught her staring at me. Something smells burnt. Rayhan interjected. I smiled in amusement as Jasmine laughed loudly. It's all edible. Rayhana lied smoothly. Alejandro looked at her before he took a piece of the brownie first. I felt a slight sense of disappointment, the very opposite of the look that now crossed Jasmine's face. I took a seat on the same sofa as Rayhan, as Rayhana sat next to Alejandro. Although I could tell she was nervous, it was clear she wanted to bond with him. I just wished he would also make that step with her. I'll be the judge of that. Alejandro said, biting into the brownie. My stomach fluttered watching him lick his lips. Remembering how that tongue had been on me last night. I pressed my thighs together, looking away. Rayhan took a piece of the brownies too. Honestly, I feel like a judge right now, he said, popping it into his mouth. Too dry. Jasmine's face fell a little but she said nothing as she watched Alejandro, who didn't speak. Rayhan grabbed a cupcake and Alejandro went for a cookie. These smell burnt. They taste fine, Rayhana said innocently. Meh. He shrugged and took a big bite. Oops. The guys definitely took big bites. He gagged and spat it out into his hand. Who made such crap? Me and Rayhana burst into laughter at the look of complete annoyance and unhappiness on Raven's face, as she stood there hands now on her P.S. They are not that bad. The icing takes the edge off. She grumbled. I'm a werewolf. Our senses are heightened. Nothing can take the edge off. He stood up and rushed out of the room, most likely to grab some water. I giggled as Raven grumbled something incoherent. He was a sick to even risk it when you can smell that they're completely charred. Alejandro remarked as he ate his cookie. Not bad. Rayhana's face lit up. Just then, Rayhan re-entered with a large glass of milk and took a blondie, as he grumbled that the burnt taste was lingering in his mouth. Still, it seemed he hadn't learned his lesson, when he shoved a full square into his mouth. My eyes were on Alejandro though, as he finally took a piece of the blondie, observing it for a moment before he bit into it. His eyes instantly went to me as he swallowed, and I tried not to look at his Adam's apple bopping behind those tattoos that covered his neck. These, whatever they are delicious, he said in his deep voice. His comment sent my heart racing and my stomach knotted. Raven smirked. They're blondies, Alpha, she said as Rayhana smiled and turned to her brother. And you, Rayhan, what did you like? Yeah, the blondies, he said, shooting a glare at Raven, who stuck her tongue out at him. So, Kiara gets the reward, Rayhana said with an amused smile. What reward? Rayhan asked. A kiss from the king, Raven said smugly. Is it necessary? He didn't agree. Jasmine said, her lips now pressed together. He didn't refuse either. Raven shot back. It isn't necessary, so what are we watching? I asked. My heart was racing and I wished that werewolves didn't have such good hearing, knowing that everyone could hear it. You, Rayhana looked between us, the room felt tense and I determinedly kept my gaze on the TV. There was a movie on screen, ready to play. The tension in the room was thick and I was glad when Raven picked the remote up and pressed play. This movie isn't for Rayhana's age, hey. No fair. Even Raven isn't 18. Rayhana protested. Stop being such a grandma, Alejandro said, his eyes meeting mine before they dipped lower, running over me slowly. You might not look as young as you are, but you're still 18, act like it. It was the first words he had spoken to me, and they rendered me speechless. Was that a compliment or an insult? I didn't say anything more as Raven now sat next to me and we all began to watch the movie. I wasn't able to focus on it. I realized Rayhan didn't even talk directly to Alejandro once, who sat emotionlessly, his dark aura swirling around him. I felt his intense gaze on me a few times, but I tried not to pay attention to him. The few times I did glance at him, I found myself admiring his physique or wondering what Jasmine was to him. She seemed content and happy, even leaning on him a few times. And he didn't seem to mind. They seemed intimate. But then why did he use me? It hurt seeing that, but at the same time I don't know why I should feel like that. The movie suited Alejandro well. It was a dark thriller, the law-abiding citizen, and although I was a werewolf who had seen blood many times, watching him gruesomely torture the man who did deserve it, was still horrible. My blondies were gone and I was a little proud that Alejandro had ate more than half. The movie was over and it was now dark outside. Rayhana had fallen asleep. It seemed she really hadn't slept well last night. Jasmine's eyes had been glued on Alejandro, and I didn't miss the way her hand often found its way on his thigh. He didn't seem to care either. That hurt. Was last night just a pent-up want? Once he had me, he was now done and dusted? Pushing the thought from my head, I tried to focus on something else. I could smell the delicious food being cooked in the kitchen and felt my stomach rumble. "You sure can eat," Rayhan said. I couldn't see him properly thanks to the black screen for the credits. "I won't deny it," I said, standing up. I could see the line under the door. Keeping my eyes on it, I slowly edged forward. "Want?" I heard Raven begin. "I'm fine," I cut in. I didn't need help. I didn't need the reminder that I was seriously lacking something. Knowing I was being watched. "Wait." Alejandro's deep voice came and I stopped in my tracks. I heard someone move and then his scent became stronger as he neared me. My stomach knotted and my heart was thumping. "What is it?" I asked quietly, wondering what a werewolf's sight was like at night. Was everything the same color as it was during the day? Or was it like night vision glasses you saw in the movies? My breath hitched when he took hold of my wrist. Tingles rushed up my arm and I was very aware of the way his rough finger pads felt against my soft skin. "Not going to collect your win?" he asked mockingly. No, it wasn't that tempting for me to claim. I lied. He pulled me close, his hand gripping my chin as he tilted my head upwards. I looked into his glowing red eyes, the only thing I could see in the darkness. My heart was thumping but his was racing too. "Shame you don't get a choice then," he whispered huskily. He didn't seem to care about the audience we had. He bent down and my eyes fluttered shut as his warm breath hit my face. Just when I felt he was going to tease me and pull away, his lips met mine in a rough, bruising kiss, setting off fireworks deep within me. My breath hitched as I felt the need behind his touch. His hand let go off my wrist and wrapped around my waist, pulling me flush against him. I let out a small whimper when I felt him throb against my stomach. "Goddess!" I slowly kissed him back, my hand gripping his shirt as I now reciprocated the kiss with equal passion. Our lips trying to dominate one another's. Pleasure coursed through me and I just wanted this kiss to never end. His tongue ravished my mouth before he svcked on my tongue, a soft M0 and left my lips. But all good things have to come to an end, right? Wow, seeing my fiancé kissing someone else is something else. Jasmine's voice came, laced with irritation and disdain. Loud and clear in the suddenly very quiet room. "Kiera!" I froze and I felt Alejandro stiffen. I pulled away as if his touch burnt. "Slut!" Jasmine's quiet voice came. Slut, Alejandro had called me the same. If I knew. An excruciating pain pressed against my chest, suffocating me. I felt like I was being forced underwater. I couldn't breathe. I turned and rushed to the door. The strip of light was the only thing guiding me. I stumbled as my hands desperately felt around for the door handle. When I sensed another presence and Raven's scent filled my nose, then the door was pulled open by her. I stepped out and rushed for the stairs. "Kia," she whispered, but I couldn't look at her. Ran up the stairs and straight to my room. I was about to lock the door when she slipped inside just before I could slam it and locked it for me, pulling me straight into her arms just as I broke down. I didn't know, I whispered as she lowered us to the ground. Oh, he is such a... She hissed as she caressed my hair. I could feel her anger and sadness. Why hadn't I listened? A loud sob escaped my lips and I clamped my hands over my mouth to muffle the sounds. It hurt, so much. Why did he play me when he had someone? And then kissed me in front of her? I rocked myself, trying to ease the pain that was battering my chest. Raven hugged me tightly, but it wasn't enough. It's okay. It's going to be okay. He's a little thing. I swear if Uncle El and Liam knew. They are never going to know. I whispered, looking up at her. I want to go for a run. Kia. It's dark. She whispered, sadness in her eye. I don't care. I can smell fine. I would be okay, I just wanted to be alone. I can come with you. No, you can't shift. I just want to run. You will slow me down. Please, Raven. I whispered. The room was too suffocatingly tight. I needed space and fresh air. Kia, fine. She sighed in defeat. Cover for me. I said quietly. She nodded, watching as I stood up and walked to the large windows. I looked down into the darkness, all I could see was black with a few dots of light. I pulled my top off and stripped my trousers off before I slid the window open and jumped out. I shifted in midair and ran ahead, not caring that I couldn't see anything. It didn't matter if I got hurt. The pain I was feeling in my chest was 1,000 times more than any that could be inflicted upon me physically. Jasmine's words echoed in my mind and I felt horribly stupid. How could I not have realized it from the way they were sat? What game was Alejandro playing? I knocked into a wall, whimpering as pain sent a spasm through my side. I got back up and felt along the wall. Was this the one around the edge of the mansion? I backed up, trying to remember the height of the wall, readying myself for the leap. 3, 2, 1. I broke into a run, leaping into the air and over the wall, landing on the ground. Agonizing pain shot up my leg, but I didn't hesitate before I took off blindly into the darkness. Alejandro, when she tore herself from my hold, I was shocked. The way she stumbled blindly and felt for the door handle, hurt like a sick. Physically, the pain I felt rendered me stunned. I just stood there as she ran up the stairs, unable to process anything with the foreign emotions that I was feeling. I kissed her because I couldn't hold back. I needed to taste her again. The way she had sat there, cross-legged, watching the movie. The way she pouted or wrinkled her nose at a scene in the movie. The way she kept twisting a strand of her hair around her finger. The way she had reached for a cookie when the screen was at its brightest. It hurt. I wanted to hold her and give her whatever she wanted. It was with my mind. You're engaged. Rayhan's voice came. I swallowed, trying to compose myself. I looked back at Jasmine as she sat there, clearly jealous. My anger blazed up and I clenched my fists, resisting the urge to tear her head off. What I do, and with who, is none of your concern. We're getting married by name. If you even think for 1 minute that I'll be loyal to you, then you're way more delusional than I thought. I said coldly. My anger whirled around me as I glared at her. Her face drained of color and she whimpered in fear. I kissed her. Next time you call her a slut, I didn't finish my threat, turning and storming out of the room. What do I do? Wasn't this my decision? To marry Jasmine. I stopped halfway up the stairs, I couldn't go after her. What was the point? What was wrong with me? Uncle. Rayhan's voice came. I turned and looked at him, my eyes flashing red, silently warning him to watch before he spoke. I was in no mood for. What do you want? You're marrying Jasmine. So please leave Kiara alone, she doesn't deserve this. He said quietly. I felt a pang of guilt and jealousy at the fact that he was telling me what I should do, and that he was worrying about Kiara. Don't tell me what to do, Rayhan. I warned dangerously. If you are, even an inch for her. If there was anything in that kiss apart from attraction, then please just don't hurt her. That was it. I'm done. In a flash, I was down the stairs, slamming Rayhan into the wall. This time he seemed to have been expecting it. Saving his head from being smashed into the wall. I don't care. I've never cared. Women are women. The harder they play, the more satisfaction I get in breaking them. I said coldly. Guilt. Something I've not felt in years was eating me up. Screaming at me to stop, with every word that left my lips. Kiara was just another one in an ever-growing pile of women I've linked. I said coldly. Yeah, guess I'm being a little thing. Well then, I guess I best go the full way. Rayhan shook his head, his eyes a deep emerald green. You really don't have a heart. Wow. You hurt an 18-year-old girl, thanks to your messed up games. Do your worst. I don't give a tone. Rayhan snapped. I will do my worst in whatever way I want. You're a pup. If you weren't Raphael's, I would end your life right now. I let go of him roughly, turning away. Do it, since when has blood ever stopped you from killing one of us? I stopped in my tracks. So, Raphael had told him. The one thing I asked him never to tell anyone. This betrayal wasn't something I could push away. Only adding to the hurricane that was growing within me. Well then. I guess one more to that list won't make a difference. I growled, turning as I glared at him. He didn't know what he was messing with. He stood there, anger clear in his eyes. His alpha aura rolling off of him, but it was nothing compared to mine. Shame your dad didn't warn you to stay away from me. I'm a monster after all. With those words, I shifted and lunged at him, unleashing all the pent-up rage that I could no longer contain. Raven Kiara's pain lingered, even when she jumped from that window. I hated seeing her like this, I just wish I could do more for her. I sat on the ground feeling a little lost. I wanted to go down and beat that big, bad alpha up. He really needed to remove the stick that was stuck up him. How could he just do that to Kiara? I wished she understood this wasn't like the daemon in her situation, it was clear she liked the king more, I mean, yes, the man had perfect that made you want to squeeze it, not to mention, he was absolutely tasty looking, but for him to hurt Kiara like this, outshone all his hot looks. I sighed deeply, wishing I could ask Liam for advice, but I knew I couldn't. I missed him and Damon. Things seemed so much calmer knowing they were there looking out for us both. I was torn out of my thoughts when I felt the entire ground shake. Something had happened. I hurried to the door and left the room, shuddering when I heard the scariest growl I had ever heard. It filled me with fear. I felt myself tremble under the power that seemed to seep into every corner of the mansion. I hesitated. Should I go see? I could hear things breaking and shouting. I slowly made my way out of the room. Alpha! Stop! Alejandro! You will kill him! Darien's voice came. I stopped at the top of the stairs. My heart seemed to pause at the sight before me. The entire hall was unrecognizable, whilst a wolf and Lycan were fighting. I had never seen such a terrifying sight in my life. A Lycan! It was true. He was something completely different. He towered far above his human height of 6 foot 5 inches. His fur was so black it looked almost blue, and the suffocating aura that rolled off of him made my knees weak. 12 warriors were trying to stop him from killing the large glossy black wolf. Rayhan! I could smell the blood and my heart thumped, feeling a fear I had never felt before. I saw Serena making her way around the warriors and Darien as she hurried upstairs to me. What happened? Claire mind-linked Darien. She whispered, dragging me back down the hall. He kissed Kiera. Although he's engaged to Jasmine. And then I don't know what Rayhan must have said. I said. Kiera needed to stay away from him, he was dangerous. What? Engaged to Jasmine? That. Oh, but I thought. Serena shook her head. Stay with Kiera. When he's like this, it's better everyone is out of his way. Jasmine took Rayhana out the window and is staying away. It's better if you come with me too. The both of you. Kiera went for a run, I said. I felt a little unsettled. Serena frowned, before we both flinched as the entire ground shook once more. Get Rayhan to the hospital now. Darien growled. My heart sank. Was he okay? Goddess, this alpha really was an A grade. Okay girl, come on, we need to leave. I'll find Kiera. Can she? I mean, she can't see at night, can she? Serena asked me as she pulled me towards Kiera's room, clearly not wanting to come off as offensive in any way. We will leave out the window. I'll tell someone to find Kiera. You can stay at mine until things are okay, Rayhan is already there. I nodded, this trip was turning into a nightmare. I just hoped Kiera and Rayhan were okay. Kiera, I don't know how long I've been running. Blindly knocking into things at times, not that I cared. The pain took the edge off the one in my chest. I had ignored the patrol wolves around his territory and just ran past them. My leg was hurting now and my limp was worse. I finally sunk down near a river, but I didn't get to rest when Greg's voice filled my head. Princess, where are you? There's an entire squad out searching for you. It's not safe out there? He sounded alarmed and I cursed internally, hoping he didn't tell Dad. Relax Greg, I'm just chilling near the river. The beta says you need to tell us your exact location. We need to make sure you are safe. Alpha Elijah will have our heads. I sighed. I'm not sure where exactly, I can't see, remember? Just, near a river, I replied. They'd probably find me soon, I'm sure the border patrol would probably know what direction I went in. I covered my eyes with my paws, although all I could see was the glow of the moon. The pain I had felt had eased up a little. I was now angrier at the fact that he had gotten to me again. I swear by Selene the goddess, I won't let it happen again. I would focus on Valentine and the hospital, leave early in the morning and return late at night. Hopefully, when Auntie Indigo comes, we can go stay at hers. I'm sure she'd happily let Rayhana stay too. I sighed deeply, trying to ignore the anguish that was eating me up from inside. Princess. Harry's voice came. I resisted a groan and stood up, trying not to limp. I had overworked myself. Come. He said. I felt him brush my side, urging me forward. I took a few steps before I stumbled. He growled. Shift. I'll carry you. He said. I don't have clothes. I whined. I preferred Greg, he was nicer. Harry was a meanie. I could sense a few other wolves around and then heard Serena's voice. You're in pain, Kiera. Here, change into this. She pushed something against my mouth and I caught it before I stumbled, unsure where to change. All of you turn around. She commanded. I loved the beta female, she was cool. Her commanding voice was clear and I was happy when she told me I was okay to change. I shifted, wincing at the pain that was spasming up my ankle to my knee. She helped me put the oversized shirt on. Right. She's dressed. She said. I felt her shift and the sound of bones breaking, then Harry's annoying muzzle prodding my back. Get on. I made a face and got onto his back. The man was annoying. But in all fairness, I was glad. I could barely walk. The Alpha got angry. Is that why you left? Greg and I saw several warriors go to restrain him. He was going to kill his nephew from what we heard. My blood ran cold. Oh no. Is Rayhan okay? He was taken to the hospital. He was impressive and actually attacked back, got a few hits in too, but the Lycan King is a beast. Harry said. I'm not happy with you staying there. He won't attack me. I said through the link with such conviction that I wondered why I was so sure. He had hurt me emotionally. What's to stop him from hurting me physically too? Take me to the hospital. I sensed his disapproval through the link. I'm not sure that's a good idea. That's an order. My command resonated strongly and he didn't reply. If the situation wasn't so dire, I'd have smiled at how quickly he submitted. After all, I was the daughter of two alphas. Blood, wounds, and broken bones. Rayhan had it all. 3 doctors were rushing around tending to him as I stared through the glass. We had reached the hospital quick enough and I was shocked at the state he was in. He's bleeding too quickly. Blood pressure is too low. His heart rate is dropping. I simply stood outside the door, knowing he was in this condition because of me. I had to help. I could see Dr. Callum rushing around. Would he let me help? The urge to go to Rayhan was growing. Without even bothering with Serena and Harry, I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Kiera! You can't go in! Serena called, alarmed. Dr. Callum looked at me and motioned for Serena to leave. I didn't speak to him and made my way over to the bed. I placed my hand on Rayhan's bleeding chest, looking at 3 large gashes that ran across it from his shoulder to his waist. How could Alejandro have done this? I saw him flinch when my hand touched the open gashes. Yeah, I knew this was not hygienic or smart, but there was something deep inside me urging me along. I wanted him to get better. Blood coated my hands like water and I didn't even notice that the doctors had stopped working and moving. Kia! Rayhan groaned. His eyes fluttered open slightly. What are you? He looked down at his stomach, then back into my eyes that were fixed on him. I didn't realize what else he said because suddenly I felt my energy drain as I collapsed. All I remembered was someone catching me before I hit the ground. Kiera shouting. It's all I could hear, then the clean smell of a hospital hit me. I frowned. Goddess, why were they so loud? I want to know what happened. Greg's growl came. Calm down, sir. You must understand. She only overexerted herself. Dr. Callum's voice. I don't care. I'm calling Alpha Elijah. Greg snapped. Don't. Please. I think Kiera will wake up soon. Raven's voice came. Thank the goddess for her. I mean, I didn't want Dad to come. I forced my eyes open and looked up at the ceiling. Yeah, I was right, this was a hospital room. Guys, shut up! I groaned. They fell silent and I realized there were more than just the 3 in the room. Serena and Rayhana were also here. They all looked at me and I stared back. Was I? I looked down. Nope, all covered. Something on my face. I asked, sitting up. More like what's in your hands, Raven said, smirking. I raised an eyebrow, looking at my hands. Oh, you're so dumb at times. She said, mocking Rayhana's smile. You have a gift, Kia. She said. Okay, I'm dreaming. Right? What were they talking about? The door opened and my eyes widened in surprise when none other than Rayhan stepped through the door. Although a little paler than usual and with some bandages covering his chest and shoulder, he actually looked fine. In the state he had been in earlier, it wasn't possible for him to be up already. This was definitely a dream. Should I pinch myself? I never realized you were that special. He said with a wink, breaking the thick silence that had fallen over the group. Okay, either I'm dreaming or this is a weird prank. I grumbled. I didn't feel tired anymore and it was dark outside, so it was still night, right? Let me explain, Miss Kiera. Callum said, coming over. Remember how I said you may be a witch with the way your touch calmed the patient? Well, there was more to it. It seems you're blessed with some healing abilities. It took a moment for me to understand his words. Okay, this was ridiculous, I was definitely dreaming. I raised my hand to my mouth and bit down on it hard. Oh, that hurt. Kiera. Raven said, alarmed. That makes no sense. I complained, massaging my poor hand. Dr. Callum chuckled. I've heard of it. It's rare, but there are at least 3 recorded cases of wolves with the ability to heal throughout our history. You are a healer wolf, Kiera, your sight is clear proof of that. I didn't say anything, trying to comprehend what he was trying to say. My sight? The part where I'm blind as a bat. I asked, unhappy with this weird situation. I'm really curious to know what this means too, Selena asked with intrigue. The wolf who is blessed with the gift of healing often lacks something. The first one recorded in history was a mute. She was born without a tongue and therefore she couldn't speak, but the gift of healing ran through her veins. The second was blind and the third was paralyzed from the waist down. Very little is known about healer wolves and some even think they are a myth, but for someone like myself who loves medicine and healing, I have done extensive research. I believed in it, but there is no clear proof. The healer wolves hold many abilities, although knowledge of what exactly those are has been lost. It also means you are without a doubt of Ashton's heritage. The past healer wolves were all known to be from that lineage. Callum explained. I was beyond stunned, unable to really believe his words. Rayhan standing before me perfectly well, looking at me smiling was proof enough, right? It seemed Callum wasn't done. The Ashton blood is said to be from one of the very first werewolf families that came into existence. Wow, Raven murmured. It would also make sense for your mother's special abilities. Giving birth to a healer wolf is very dangerous and not something an ordinary she-wolf would be able to do. Apparently, if we go by the myths and legends, Selene was gifting her children the ability to grant life, something the other gods disapproved of. So she made a deal that she would only grant this ability to a rare few, and in return, take something else from them to compensate. In your case, your night vision. He took a deep breath and continued. It is said that some of the gods tried to cheat her, to kill the women who carried these healers, so Selene granted them the strength to protect their pup. Your mother's extreme self-healing must have played a part in her own and your survival. Dr. Callum looked grave now. Just the thought made my blood run cold. If it hadn't been for the mention of the name Ashton in my great-uncle's books, I wouldn't have believed it so easily. So long story short, when you touched my wound, you healed it somewhat. By tomorrow or the day after, I'll probably be as good as new. Rayhan said, now walking over to the bed and taking a seat. I could tell he was still in pain. I glared at him. I was not going to let him off the hook. Can you stop challenging him? I said, annoyed. He raised an eyebrow. Well. He trailed off, making a face, and I knew what he was going to say, like he's the king or alpha. Unfortunately he was both. Exactly, so please, if you want to do something for me then please don't annoy him off, I stated. Are you all right? He asked me, not even caring about what I just said. I felt a sting of pain at the memory, but I was not going to let him get me down. I was Kiera Westwood, I was not a pushover. Perfectly. Just annoyed that he didn't mention his engagement. I said, sighing. Well. Excuse me. Callum said, leaving, knowing the conversation was getting serious. Care to share what happened? Rayhana asked. Never you mind, Uncle and I kind of fought, Rayhan said. It was clear she didn't really know the full story. It was better this way. I knew she had been asleep when we kissed, and I didn't really want to make stuff more awkward. Well, that house is a wreck. Do we go back there? Raven asked. No, I can set you all up elsewhere, Serena said. Raven, you can do as you wish, but I'm going back there. I'm not going to let him think he had an effect on me, I said firmly. My eyes flashed a brilliant purple. Rayhan sighed. You're more stubborn than your mother, and you're nearly as hot-headed as your uncle. I shot back. Raven huffed, giving in. For you, I'll go back there. She muttered. Me too. I mean, Uncle's been okay with me. Rayhana said, looking at her brother. Rayhan didn't say anything, as if contemplating what he should say. Sure, whatever you prefer. Well then let's head back, I said, climbing out of bed. Oh no, you two are staying at the hospital today, Serena said firmly, making me pout. Get some rest and just stay put. Luckily, Uncle is leaving tomorrow evening, so maybe we can all just chill together. Rayhan suggested. Sounds good. Raven nodded her agreement. As long as it's in the evening. I have the stuff to do all day, I said. And at night I thought, remembering the match with Carmen. I was glad I was staying here tonight, but I didn't want to tell them that. I did feel tired, but the main reason was I didn't really want to go back to the mansion. Not right now. I just needed a little time to pull my thoughts together before I faced him. Serena nodded and told us that she'd take Raven and Rayhana to hers for today. Rayhan returned to his and I lay down again. So much had happened, I wouldn't be able to forget how he made me feel. Or that night. Would I ever find anyone who awoke the animalistic side within me the way he did? That deep desire that he ignited? The way he buried his nose into my neck and said my name. I shivered as I felt my core throb. Don't, Kiera. Don't think about it. Alejandro Rossi, the Lycan king, is bad news. I would never be a side piece for him, and never would I hit on a man who was tied to someone else. The mistake was made because I didn't know, and for that, I'd apologize to Jasmine. But if she was willing to stay with a man like him, then that was on her. So consumed by my thoughts, I didn't even realize when sleep overcame me once again. Alejandro, I don't remember it. All I remember is Darien screaming at me to get a grip. I came to, only to realize the entire hallway was destroyed. Blood was everywhere and Rayhan was a mess. I won't lie, I felt guilty seeing him like that, but he kept pushing me. This is why I prefer to be alone. No one around me to annoy me off, no one to risk hurting. Told you it was all I could do, inflict pain, cause pain. It's what I was good at. I stormed upstairs, not caring about anything as they rushed Rayhan to the hospital. I didn't care if Raphael flipped or not. Maybe I just wanted to hear it from him, rather than just sense it and see it in his eyes. I wanted him to scream that I was a monster, just like everyone else think I am. Was that the reason I kept lashing out at the kid? Got to admit he was pretty good. I looked at the marks that covered my entire torso. I dropped into my office chair, irritated to find that Kiera's torn clothes were gone. The room was cleaned and I couldn't even smell her. Where did they all go? I didn't give a tone anyway. I took a packet of cigarettes from my drawer and lit one up, taking a long drag. Kiera. I couldn't get her out of my mind. I had hurt her, I knew I shouldn't have kissed her, but I couldn't stop myself. I stared at the ceiling, not even moving when I heard Darien enter and run up the stairs. Did he want to die too? The door opened and he glared at me. Alejandro. I didn't reply, not even bothering to turn my attention to him. Seriously, Alejandro, what happened? I'm just considering if I should castrate you or tear your head off, I said, looking at him murderously. He sighed. Tell me, man, he said, closing the door behind him. I linked with Kiera last night, I said. He gasped, like a girl. Do men ever gasp? I looked at him. Was he for real? What? You what? Elijah. Alpha Elijah is going to kill you, dude. Yeah, this is why I don't like telling him. I'm not scared of that. Well, he and your brother together might be able to do some damage. Throw in Rayhan and Liam, Darien said. I'm so scared, I said mockingly. Alejandro, why would you use a teen? He asked, rubbing his forehead. She's a woman, I said carelessly, remembering her perfectly smooth skin. Pleasure rushed south and I pushed the thoughts away. You usually go for women over 20 at least? He remarked. Yeah, he wasn't wrong. But there was something about her. Who knows? I found her, she wanted it just as much as I did. I said coldly. That's hard to believe. He scoffed. She's a sweet young woman. Who doesn't want a piece of me? I said arrogantly. Me, he said, glaring at me. Well, someone wasn't in a good mood. I'm still annoyed off, so better watch it. I warned, my eyes flashing dangerously. Okay, fine, so then what happened? He asked, sighing in defeat. Then I ignored her, agreed to marry Jasmine, then went and kissed her in front of Jasmine, who let it out that we were engaged. She ran out. Rayhan tried playing the knight in shining armor and I snapped. I said in my I don't give a tone. He looked confused and shocked. Probably more because of my unbothered attitude. Okay, about Jasmine. Are you sure? He asked quietly. I need someone to play the role, I won't be tied to her, I said firmly, puffing out smoke. You will have to mark her. Yeah, if I want kids. Which I don't, no. If she is to be the queen of this pack, then you will need to mark her. Then I will, but she's not marking me. I said, firmly tossing the cigarette into an ashtray and taking up another. My entire neck was covered in tattoos, a decision Elle made years ago. No one will ever mark me. I was no one. That was the plan even when I hadn't minded the idea of a mate. Having a mate is a beautiful thing. Destined or not. Do what makes you happy, Alejandro, not what is expected or what you think is best. He said quietly. I always do whatever I want. I shot back. Yeah, what you want, not what makes you happy. He countered, now crossing his arms. Look. Rayhan's in quite a bad state. I don't care. Get out. My tone held finality, my anger igniting once more. He just looked at me, knowing he wasn't going to get more out of me. Not if he wanted to make it back to his mate and daughter alive. His gaze locked with mine for a few seconds before he lowered his head in submission and then walked out. The door shut with a click and I stared at the ceiling once again. Sooner or later I'd probably kill Jasmine in a fit of anger, that's why she was ultimately the better option. I wouldn't give a tone if she died. But Kiera. She had done something to me. I sat up, mind linking Callum. What's happening down there? I asked coldly. Alpha, Rayhan is almost fully healed. Wasn't he in a bad state? I asked, frowning. Yes, but there is something I need to tell you. It's about Miss Kiera and Rayhan's current state. He said, excitement barely contained in his voice. I frowned deeply. What exactly was going on? I'll stop by later. I walked through the silent hospital hall. It was past midnight and everyone was mostly asleep. I was pondering over what Callum had just told me. So, I had been correct, there was something different about Kiera. Kiera was definitely different, not to mention having the blood of one of the oldest werewolf families. I hadn't really ever heard of healer wolves, nor had I ever come across the name Ashton before. I wasn't one for research and history anyway. Not unless it involved Lycans, and that was research I did years ago. Callum had said she would have special abilities aside from the healing. My question was, if no even knew of her ability and even I could barely sense it, how did the Wendigos track her down? Something wasn't adding up. Witches could be the answer, but how capable are witches? The smell of hazelnut chocolate overcame me and I knew she was close. I made sure no one saw me as I slipped down the hall until I reached her room. What was I doing here? I hesitated, but I couldn't stop myself. I needed to see her. Opening the door, I slid inside her room, silently shutting the door behind me. There she lay on the bed in a clingy oversized shirt. The only light was the moon shining in through the window, emphasizing her perfect body. A thin sheet draped over her from her waist down. Didn't they leave a lamp or light on for her? I frowned as I pushed the thought away. Why do I care? I looked at her once more. One hand rested above her head on the pillow and the other was loosely draped over her waist. A siren, that's what she was. Without even trying, she had messed with my head. I inched closer. Her heritage was a surprise, and something inside of me told me she was the type of queen I needed. The befitting queen to stand by my side, but the two of us were just too different to ever work. I was too far gone, and dangerous. I know I can't say it was just the ex I craved. Well, I did want that, but I'll admit that I cared too. That was the reason she would never be an option. Being by my side would make her a target. Although I knew she was already a target, I wouldn't make it worse for her. Besides, monsters didn't love. I slowly brushed the few stray strands of hair that hung over her face back, before letting my knuckles brush down her soft cheek. She pouted in her sleep, nuzzling her cheek against my hand. I smirked slightly. She was cute. Her lashes touched her cheeks as she slept and her plump lips were parted slightly. She was the most beautiful woman I had ever laid eyes on. Yeah, I admit like that in my head, but I wouldn't dare say it out aloud. She turned on her side and I slowly moved my hand away, watching as she tucked both hands under her cheek, relaxing once again. I crouched down near the hospital bed, my face inches from her own. It had hurt when she had run from that room, seeing her so vulnerable like that. I was sorry for being such a DCK to her, but I wasn't sorry for her or for that kiss. It was all I wanted, to her one more time. Who am I kidding? 1 more time or 10 more times. I'd never get tired of her, and that was all the more reason to stay away. If I could. I leant forward, placing a soft kiss on her lips, relishing in her sweet taste. I felt her breath hitch and swiftly moved away as she stirred. Her heart rate quickened as she moaned, beginning to wake up. I needed to stop doing this. Every touch, every kiss, was messing with my head and body, in more ways than one. I was out the door, leaning against the wall by the time she sat up. "Is someone there?" she called out, her soft husky voice slightly thicker than usual. I didn't move or reply, remaining as silent as possible. After a moment, I heard her sigh softly and I wondered what she was thinking. "You must be dreaming, Kia," she murmured before laying down once again. I silently made my way out of the hospital. I was going to leave on business later in the evening. But right now, I needed to get away from here and maybe it was best I left earlier. With all the pent-up emotions and frustration that coursed through me, I needed to vent somewhere. What better way than to find a rogue hideout? Kiera, the next day, I awoke with a spring in my step. The only downside was that I had a dream that Alejandro had kissed me. The thing was, it had made my entire body ignite with a need that I was so desperately trying to ignore. It wasn't like he would have come to visit me, he was engaged to Jasmine. In my half-asleep state, I had even imagined his scent. I really needed to sort myself out and I had a plan. This hospital would be my escape. I borrowed a phone before texting Raven to have some clothes and my phone dropped off to me. I was then relieved when a nurse came in with some food. I was ravenous. After missing dinner last night, I didn't even realize how hungry I really was. Raven came soon enough and dumped my bag on the bed. "Okay, I'm off to shower," I said, sliding off the bed. "Okay, whoa. No. I need to talk to you. We need to talk," she grumbled. "Can I go shower first? Then we can talk." "Promise." She sighed and nodded in defeat. I took a quick shower and pulled on the black lingerie, black leggings, and a fitted long-sleeved black top that she had brought for me. One thing about Raven is, if you ask her to get you clothes she will choose black, followed by purple or red. Once I had slipped my flats on, I returned to the room, towel drying my hair. "All right, shoot, what is it?" I asked as I sat on the bed and put some moisturizer on my hands and face whilst looking across at her. "Kia, tell me, are you okay?" she asked with concern in her different colored eyes. "Yes, perfectly. I was upset because if I knew he was engaged, I wouldn't have gotten with him. I'm not that kind of girl, Raven. I would never steal someone's man, not unless he was my mate," I joked. She didn't smile, as she picked up my Fenty lip gloss and put some on herself. "I don't know, you hide how you feel often, please don't," she said quietly. I sighed and looked towards the door. Raven was the closest to me, like she knew literally almost everything about me apart from that one major secret about Damon and me that I had kept. I didn't want to keep on hiding stuff from her. Fine, I am attracted to him, but I'll get over it. I am not going to let him mess with me when he's going to get married and mated soon enough, I'm guessing," I said, applying my gel liner to my eyes and trying not to imagine Alejandro with Jasmine. Okay. Thanks for sharing, but if things get hard, remember we're all here for you. She said. I'm planning to avoid him as much as possible. Besides, the blood moon is so close. I think I'll find my mate. She smiled at me and nodded. I'm sure you will. Who's finding whose mate? Rayhan said, walking into the room. I frowned at him. Ever heard of knocking Rossi? I asked. No, I kind of lost my manners as I got older. He said, before holding out a bag. Darien went into town earlier and got fresh donuts. I thought I'd share. But if you girls don't want any donuts. Hot, fresh donuts. My mouth watered just at the very thought. I rushed across the room and grabbed the bag. Thank you, of course we'd like to share. I said, opening the brown wrapper, and pulled out a sugar-coated donut before taking a bite. Goddess, this is amazing. He chuckled as Raven took one too before I handed the bag back to him. Not sure if I should have shared with Raven, after those deathly cakes. He said, making her glower at him. If you hadn't nearly died, I wouldn't let you off with that. She said. How do you feel now? I asked him. He was dressed, couldn't really see the bandages underneath. He tossed the donut bag on the bed and lifted his shirt off over his head, making Raven whistle. I had to admit, the man sure was fine. Yes, maybe not as ripped and dominating looking like Alejandro was. His skin looked more tanned and defined. But he was still very pretty. I stopped admiring his perfect six-pack and looked at the wounds. It was almost as if he hadn't even gotten injured the day before. I walked closer to him. How was that even possible? Wow, I'd like to pretend you're saying wow at my body, but it's the wounds, right? He said, with a small smirk. Yes, the body is great too, but I do mean the wounds. I said, amused as I traced my finger over the almost fully healed cut and felt him tense. Sorry if I'm hurting you. I said, removing my hand and leaning closer as I examined it. You're healing so well. Thanks to you. He said quietly. No, it's my fault you ended up getting hurt. I honestly can't believe I did that. Well, it seems unknowingly you tapped into it. Remember Kiera, sometimes when one of the pups got ill, didn't they enjoy your touch? Raven asked suddenly. That's because I was gentle and not whacking their heads to run away. I retorted, amused. All right, all right. I get it. But thinking of it, didn't those comments start more after you turned 18? She asked. She wasn't wrong. Okay guys, I need to go. I said, grabbing the donut packet. I rushed from the room, stumbling a little as I hurried through the hallway heading for the second floor. If I had this ability, then I could help Valentine, right? How did I tap into it? Was it the urge to want to see them get better? This is a hospital, Miss Kiera. Callum's voice came as I almost knocked straight into him. Sorry. I said embarrassedly. He gave a small smile. Heading to Valentine's room. Yeah. Here's your card and I think I'll come with you. If you're planning to use your ability, I want to monitor it. We don't want you to overexert yourself. He said firmly. I trailed off. He had a point. I was really excited as I impatiently waited for him to lead the way. When I was finally able to reach Valentine, I noticed the smell in the room had eased up a little since the day before and he looked visibly calmer, holding on to the item of clothing that I had left under his head. "Do you think we could get the blood pressure machine in here?" Dr. Callum said quietly to one of the nurses who stood by the door. She nodded before walking off. The two guards stood close behind as I placed my hand on his forehead. "Okay, here I go," I thought, taking a deep breath. "Do you have any idea how you will do this?" Callum asked me. "I don't really know. Whenever someone's ill, I just have this urge to want them to be all right again," I said. "So I think I got this." I took a deep breath, watching as the nurse pushed the stand with the machine on into the room, leaving it with Dr. Callum. "We haven't been able to check his heart rate or anything due to his behavior, but he's calm right now, so let's see." I slowly peeled the bandages of the herbal paste I had applied off and wiped them clean, trying not to flinch at how deep and garish his wounds were. I had seen they had tried to stitch him up too, but it didn't work, not with the infection eating up at the flesh. I waited until the machine was hooked up and then closed my eyes, placing my hand firmly on his forehead. I wanted him to get better, to be there for Jean and his unborn child. My heart raced at the sadness that I had felt for her. The fear that she may lose her mate filled my heart with fierce determination. No matter what, I was not going to stop trying until he was better. I heard a murmur. "By Selene," Callum whispered in awe. I opened my eyes, seeing the faintest of light around my hand. It instantly vanished when I realized, and I blinked. His heart rate calmed and his wounds. Callum said, rushing forward. "You are a miracle," he added, now looking at me. I looked down at Valentine to see that indeed the wounds didn't look as infected as before and were visibly smaller. My heart leapt in happiness. He was going to get better. "What was that?" Julio asked with clear curiosity in his voice. "Something you are not to mention to anyone," Callum said firmly, his face becoming serious, as if he had just realized something. "By order of the king. I mean it. This stays in this room." "All right, doctor," Brian said quietly. I closed my eyes once again. "Miss, you need to make sure you don't overwork yourself," Callum said. "I feel fine," I said. With that same emotion and mindset I opened my eyes, focusing on healing him with whatever ability I possessed. I watched with awe as the wounds began to clear up. He gasped for air, his eyes flying open now a startling blue as they were no longer stuck in the color of his wolf's eyes. "Where am I?" he asked hoarsely, looking around before looking at me. It was the last thing I heard before I felt myself toppling backwards, someone catching me, and then, everything went black. 2 hours later, I had woken up and heard a 25-minute lecture from Dr. Callum in which he told me to use my common sense and not overwork myself. I didn't even know I wasn't able to sense it. He then refused to let me near any more patients today and I was kicked out of the hospital in a rather unceremonious way. 10 minutes ago, take her out of here, Dr. Callum ordered Brian and Julio. "I don't want to see you until tomorrow." "But doctor, I did good," I protested. "You don't even know your limits. If you collapse or end up exhausted, it will be my head the king and your father will want to have," he muttered. "If either of you dares touch me, I will kick you," I threatened as the bulky duo towered over me. This couldn't be happening. How could they throw me out after I healed Valentine? I wanted to help. "Sorry princess, but he's right, I still need to live a while longer," Brian remarked in his deep voice, before grabbing my tiny arm in his huge hand. "Ow ow ow! That hurts," I lied. He raised an eyebrow, not falling for it, before grabbing my other arm and lifting me clean off the ground. "Oh! Don't you dare do this! This is a hospital, miss. Lower your voice," Callum said, as he stood with his arms crossed. "But I didn't do anything bad," I shouted as Brian tossed me over his shoulder. "Go do something kids your age do. You can't spend the entire day in here," Callum said. "I am going to tell the king about this," I growled at the two warriors, ignoring the grumpy doc. "We will see," Julio said, walking alongside Brian lazily. I was then placed outside the hospital doors and the annoying men just stood there guarding the entrance. "Off you go, princess," Julio said. "Shoo!" Brian added with a wink. I glared at him, my eyes blazing purple. "Oh, I will get my revenge." "Of course," Brian said. I turned and stormed off. Now here I was storming back to the mansion, cursing Callum, Julio, and Brian. May they get bitten by mosquitoes and stung by bees. May they bald early and lose their teeth. May they never be able to perform ever again. I cackled at the last one, then covered my mouth, giggling. Now I need to think of a plan for revenge. My smile faded as I paused when I saw the training grounds. Tonight was the match with Carmen. I should have kept up with training whilst I was here too. Maybe from tomorrow. Now in a serious mood, I decided to hatch an excuse to fool Raven and Rayhan before I snuck out at 10 p.m. I had heard at the hospital Alejandro was out of town and I was glad. I didn't need him to be another one to face today. "Well, Carmen, you wanted a match, I'll give you a match. You may be one of the head warriors here, but I'm the daughter of a queen. Game on!" Kiera night had fallen and we had just finished a game of Monopoly, with Rayhana winning. "Okay, end the game, I'm done," Rayhan said, sitting back with not a single Monopoly note to his name. "You are awful at this," Raven remarked. "It's a game of luck, what do you mean awful? I was never landing on an unbought property and then I kept landing on all your guys' houses," he complained, running his fingers through his hair. I faked a yawn, stretching. "All right guys, I'm off to bed, I'm tired," I said while massaging my neck. "Already?" Raven asked. "It's only 9:30. Healing takes a toll." I lied. I honestly felt fine, after I was kicked out so rudely. "Oh yes. That's kind of cool though, that you've got that ability," Rayhana said. "Yeah, something we need to keep on the low," Rayhan added. Rayhana nodded. "All right, well I'm going to go FaceTime Mom and Dad. Don't tell them what's been happening if you ever plan to visit again," Rayhan told her as both of us got up and walked out. I was glad no one questioned me much, as I silently made my way to my room and changed into some sneakers. I pulled my hair into a messy bun and looked in the mirror, before picking up the staff that I had brought along with me. Well, here goes nothing. I snuck out silently through the back door of the mansion, using the light on my phone as a guide. I wasn't even sure where I was meant to meet Carmen, so just made my way to the training grounds. Sure enough, there she stood. That's something to see, a wolf using a torch. She chuckled. Well, there's a first for everything, I said. So, I was thinking the training grounds might be the best option. Or should we go to an indoor hall? She asked mockingly. Up to you. I don't care either way, I've trained to fight without my sight. If you need the advantage of the training grounds, or should I say the darkness, that's fine by me. I said, walking over to the low wall and jumping over. I heard her growl. Watch it, pup. Stating facts, did I hit a nerve? I asked. I wasn't wrong. If she wanted to use my blindness to her advantage, then fine. I think it may be better we go inside then. She muttered. Nope, this is what you wanted. Let's carry on. I actually want to see how much of a disadvantage I am at, compared to a warrior female who is trained to fight and kill. I said, now placing my phone down on the wall after switching the light off. I spun my staff and looked at her. Are you sure? I don't want you crying later. I'm sure. I said confidently. I'm a Westwood, we don't back down. She knew I'd agree anyway. I wasn't actually sure how I'd fare against her. After all, she had experience on her side, plus extensive training from this pack. I also had no idea about her fighting style. I'm using a blunt weapon too. I thought it should be a little fair. She said, and I heard her come closer. Of course, fair, I said mockingly. Was she for real? Fair? I was blind here? Stupid. I don't really want to waste time talking, so let's do this. She didn't reply and I heard her lunge towards me. I blocked her, aiming for a low kick. Spinning around, I swiped my staff, satisfied when I heard the sound of it connecting in a low grunt. What the? Don't underestimate me simply because I cannot see, I said quietly. I spun around as I advanced now. I was not going to let her get the upper hand. She definitely had power and probably stamina on her side. She was bigger and stronger, whilst I was probably faster. What people didn't often realize was the change in their breathing or heartbeat before they made a move. That was what I relied on, not to mention I could roughly smell where they were. Sure, it was still risky not knowing what angle they would hit from, but I had learned how to have complete cover from all attacks. I sensed her move forward and quickly retreated, backing away slowly. I turned my back towards her as I pretended to keep my defenses up, wondering if she'd fall for it. I sensed her approach quietly and pretended to search for her in front of me, although I knew she was right behind me. She was good at keeping her heartbeat low and steady, but I was better at this game. I timed my attack, and when I felt her get ready to pounce, I spun around and felt my staff connect with her stomach, throwing her backwards with a painful thump. She was up in seconds and hit me with the heavy metal weapon she was holding. I bit my lip to stop the hiss that almost left my lips. Whatever she was using contained silver. She swore, yanking my staff from my hand, surprising me. I then felt a heavy kick to my head and went flying as shooting pain rushed through my skull. I never knew you were aiming to disarm, I said. Hadn't we silently agreed to weapons? Well, rules change in seconds in a fight. She said. You should have known that. I frowned but said nothing, trying to hear her make her next move. It was hit after hit. She was strong and resilient. I blocked some I didn't. I did get a few in too, but without my staff I was losing, not to mention she still had the weapon that I had no idea of what it was. She charged at me and I raised my arm to block her attack. Hearing the swing of her weapon I dived and pushed myself forward, hitting her hard with my shoulder as I felt my foot give way, making me stumble. I heard her chuckle as she brought the weapon she was holding down on the back of my head. I twisted around, grabbing the silver blade of what was definitely a sword, and yanked it from her grasp. I felt the silver burn my hands and cut into my palms. I could smell her growing anger and frustration. The slight smell of sweat and my blood hung in the air, mixing with the fresh smell of the crisp night air. She growled as I kicked her in the stomach and finally managed to tear the weapon from her grip. If I'm not using a weapon, then neither are you, I said, putting space between us. Without my staff for support, I had a higher disadvantage. Fair enough. She scoffed. I heard the scuff of her foot as she ran at me, but this time I was prepared. Gotta admit, you lasted a lot longer than I thought you would. I could hear the clear anger she was trying to hide. Yeah? Well, I guess I'm the queen my mother taught me to be, I said breathlessly. I blocked her kick and twisted her foot whilst she punched me in the shoulder. I felt something crack painfully in it, making me wince. The moment we both moved away, I snapped it back into place. I was adamant on ignoring the excruciating pain that was now shooting up my ankle. Humph, we will see. The Blood Moon pack is second to none, although we are a pack of not just warriors, it seems we are still pretty impressive, I said. I was proud of my pack and I would make that clear. She came at me again, her anger and annoyance clear in her aggressive attacks. At the last moment, I ducked and tackled her to the ground. We both hit the floor, knocking the wind out of her. I went for her throat, squeezing hard. Pressing my knee over one of her arms and stomach. Tap the ground in defeat or I will give you up to get free, I said, tightening my grip. She grunted, trying to wrench free. Not happening. She wheezed. She let out a choking growl and I felt her claws elongate before they dug into the back of my neck, making me gasp in pain. What a disappointment! You broke literally every general rule of a match, I said in disgust, punching her across the face. Yet I'll still win this without doing so. I squeezed her neck before lifting her head off the ground by her hair and slamming it back down onto it, hearing a sickening crunch. She groaned in pain, her eyes flashing dangerously. 10, 9, 8, I began counting slowly, unbothered by her venomous gaze. I could feel she was going to black out soon enough, so I eased up a little. 5, 4, 3, 2. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.